and tuning in with Moishe House. We're here on Zoom. We also have a Facebook Live happening right now. It's going to be, I think, a really interesting conversation. We're actually at a precipice right now where we have some communities that are on really full lockdown, and then other communities that are opening up. So we'll get to share some of that, and also what's happening at Moishe House during these times. We'll get to hear from Andrew, who's been leading efforts in Expedition 9, and Ariel in Los Angeles, and Valentina in Rome. For those of you who aren't familiar with Moishe House, we're an organization internationally. We operate in about 28 countries, building Jewish life for young adults after college. So we've made some big pivots and are doing some exciting things around the world that we're excited to give some insight on. With Moishe House being so global, we have a very unique perspective as to what's happening in local communities, both for young leaders and also for the Jewish community. We heard in one of the earlier global voices from Rome, and so I think it'll be really interesting, in particular, to hear what those updates are happening. And in Israel, schools have started opening. Germany's now releasing their plans and looking like that'll open up, and Prague's jumping straight into group gatherings of up to 25 people. So these things are shifting quickly. I want to share, and we'll put out the link. Moishe House is participating in a crowdsourcing fundraising effort for Pledge to Protect, where we're raising money through Jewish Together to get PPE, personal protective equipment, to over 200 agencies, Jewish agencies around the country, in bulk orders. And we're proud to be part of that campaign, and look forward to sharing that with you. We've had dozens of young adults donating to the campaign and supporting it. And for those of you who are joining from Expedition 9 from around the world, thank you. This is your signal to take a photo of you and the screen, and then you can submit it for your challenge. Next thing I want to do is introduce Jared Beck. Jared is a friend. He lives in Dallas. He's also a board member for Moishe House, the chair of our finance committee. He, his wife, Shiva, his parents, Jeffrey and Janet, have been involved in Moishe House for many years. And he's been a champion of our strategy and our work nationally, locally, and internationally. So Jared, I'm excited to turn it over to you. Got to unmute, Jared, and then we'll be able to hear you.
There we go. Thank you, David. It's an honor, really. It's an honor to be hosting this episode of Global Voices with you. As David mentioned, I am Jared Beck. I'm a national board member with Moishe House here in Dallas. My wife Shiva and I are involved with Moishe House because it's the most effective young adult peer-to-peer engagement model in the Jewish world today. Moishe House provides a link to our Jewish roots at a critical time in young adult lives. And really, for my wife and I, who met through a federation program, National Young Leadership Cabinet, my wife and I remember just 10 years ago as single adults living in Los Angeles and Dallas, how Moishe House really filled a gap in the Jewish programming and the Jewish life that we all know exists for the 10 or so years after college. And so I'm thankful that my wife and I have had an opportunity to travel and really learn firsthand from the Moishe House residents around the world, the challenges and the opportunities that they're encountering while they're trying to build a peer-to-peer global Jewish community. Whether it's in Mexico City, Budapest, Los Angeles, or Moscow, I'm inspired every day by the creativity and the quality and the volume, really, of programming that our residents produce every day and every week. And really, their desire to connect even with each other, even in these challenging times, is to have meaningful Jewish experiences, is really, really cool, and something that I know we can all get behind. And one more thing, before I introduce the panelists and jump into the questions, I want to let everyone know that you can submit questions via the online feature in Zoom, and we'll try to get to as many of your questions as possible towards the end of this session. So speaking of these, all the amazing residents that we have, I'd like to introduce our three panelists. Our first one is Valentina Kahlo. Valentina was born and raised in Rome, and she's also lived in Israel. She currently works for the United Nations Development Program, managing partnerships and programs primarily in Africa. Italy is home. Italy is where she calls home, having just moved back to Rome. Italy has a Jewish community of about 30,000 Jews. And Valentina is a founding resident of Moishe House, Rome. So Valentina, can you say hi? We may need to unmute you.
Hi. Yes, I confirm all the information.
Great.
Yeah.
And
Hi,
we'll
everyone. Yes.
And we'll come back. I just want everyone to be able to put your face and a name and a voice together. And second, we have Ariel Niesblatt. Ariel is originally from New York, where she grew up and is involved in the Jewish community. She's a marketing and business development major at Castbox, a global podcast app company which hosts and streams podcasts and also produces podcasts. She's been a resident of both Moishe House LA, Venice, and Moishe House West Hollywood, and is wrapping up 3.5 years of residency in just a few weeks. So Ariel, can you say hello?
I can. Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And last, we have Andrew Davies. Andrew's based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Andrew's a specialist with Moishe House's Camp 999 and Expedition 9, leading play shops and facilitating campness for Moishe House since 2018. He's a co-founder and executive director of Bible Players, a Torah comedy team based in New York City that we may have a chance to talk about. And welcome, Andrew.
Thanks so much, Jared, for having me. As you can see, I'm at camp right now. Thanks.
Well, we're looking forward to hearing more about that. So welcome, everyone. Let's just jump in and start with Valentina. Valentina, when we heard from Moishe House Rome in mid-March, the lockdown had begun just a couple of weeks earlier, and it's something we're all living through. Yesterday, I was reading that Italy entered into its phase 2 plan, which means easing of some of those restrictions. Can you tell us what's going on?
Yes, thank you, Jared, and thank you, David. Yes, I mean, I fully confirm that yesterday, finally, we started the phase number 2, which means that slowly we are like starting to opening up and go back kind of the normal life, still like very slowly. And in general, like overall, Italy has decided to have this national approach instead of the regional one, which means that even if there are like some areas that were affected more, as for example, the northern of Italy, like around Milan, they decided that like the government was push in terms of rules and regulation to keep having this national approach that everyone will follow. So I mean, manufacturing and production of industry, they return to work, but unfortunately, like shops, they still need to wait a bit until the 18th of May. While, for example, restaurants and bars will fully open again the 1st of June. But in the meantime, they can offer like services as delivery and takeaway, which I mean, it's such a good implementation because so far they were like fully like closed, and then they open again parks, which also it's nice. I admit yesterday also worked there, and like mainly I think that the most important is that they now we are allowed to go and visit some friends and some like relatives, obviously like still just close relatives, but it's very nice to have the opportunity of like seeing like other people, and definitely was, you know, an important like small change that it was welcome to like from all of us.
Valentina, it sounds like that is definitely a step in the right direction. So maybe you can tell us a little bit.
We hope so.
Yes, we do too. I know we all do. Can you tell us a little bit about Jewish life in Italy or Jewish life in Rome? A little bit about the house there and why it's important for the Jewish community there in Rome.
Oh, yeah, the Jewish community in Rome. I mean, I grew up here, and I admit that it's a community very active in general. But to be honest, it's more, most of the activities are always like related more on either like high school people or either like for like family oriented. There is no much for like young adults, especially after like university. So the I mean, when we opened in November, it was like such a surprise for the community, and I think it gave really an additional space where like people can just co-aggregate and can like meet all together. I remember the first event, 80 participants attended the event, totally like was unexpected, and also gave us an opportunity for being more independent, because in general in Italy people tend to stay at home until they get married. So it's really like in this case, you know, an extra opportunity of saying, okay, I can be live by myself. And then for me personally, I was not living in Rome for the past 6 years. So going back, even if I grew up here and still I had my friends, but obviously the network kind of changed, like, you know, a new group of people. It was a bit difficult. So I guess Moishe House gave really the opportunity of creating like new, to expand the network and to meet new people that are not always like the same. Because in the community of Rome specifically, most of the events, even if are organized by more like formal institutions, usually they have the same participants, so it's quite difficult to meet new people. While here, since it's like you know, in house that the events are organized by different people from different backgrounds, it's just easier to expand the network, and also to let the network be more international. Because in Italy, like in general, like in Italy, but specifically in Rome, it's not very like welcome. It's like an environment that welcome in general like internationals. So since we opened, you know, we gave this additional opportunity for like people who are traveling or just like here for a while to have a space like more international where they can meet locals, but as well like people from all over the place. So I mean, it's very nice, I think, to know that there is such a more international environment, and like it's an added value for Roman and as well international Jews.
It sounds like you've really built an amazing place, a special place. Let me ask you, with much of the lockdown still
Yeah,
in
I mean, we're
play,
trying to.
yes, it sounds like it. Uh, with much of the lockdown that is still in place right now, what's the role that Moishe House can play, and what are some of your upcoming programs? How are you all managing to still do things, and are you managing?
Okay, I mean, right now, I think that one of the main needs for people, it was actually to feel, you know, connected with their friends and their families. Especially for Italians, we are always just we have like this real need of meet others all the time, all around the cities. So unfortunately, of course, at the moment it's still not fully possible, and we had this perception of like being in a bubble. Since we still cannot go back on normal life, we thought it was nice to give the perception of we're not alone. You know, it's like a condition that we're all facing. In our community, a lot of like people that just they lost their jobs and also like a lot of young people, but they're not able like to work. So the mood was kind of down, and so we thought to just give our contribution and saying, you know, you're not alone. We're here. We still can play. We can talk. We can just like read. So let's try to connect to each other. And so we organized a few virtual and volunteering events. The first one of the month, it started the 1st of May, and it's a basket, like building care basket initiative. So we put around the city in different neighborhoods next to, yes, that was the flyer. Yes, so we put
there.
around different areas in Rome next to, yes, here they are. Yeah, we put those baskets next to the supermarket, and where like people, just like random people, can decide to either like leave food, some pasta, oil, or like whatever, or either who actually needs can feel free to take whatever he needs. So we invited our participants, like the community members, to apply to this initiative, and so far has been very nice because people are sending us pictures, and as well are monitoring the situation, and are keeping like donating, and as well inviting people who need to take from there. So we're like very happy at the moment, and the initiative will just run for additional couple of weeks, yeah, until the middle of May. So this was, let's say, our first program that we really felt involved. While yesterday we also started the second program, which was more related on the fact of still being in contact with our friends, and still really interact with other people. So we organized a game for a week. We're going to send a trivia, like 10 questions that the participant will receive, and they just need to reply. And those participants have the highest score. They will participate on a streaming event next Sunday, where they will, you know, compete, and we're gonna see who is the winner. The winner also is gonna win a prize, very nice, from a chef, which was also a Moishe House participant, and is very young, so it's like a dinner for two by this young guy who is a chef from the Jewish community, and we're always like in touch with him. And the third one, it's also, I think it's a real like result from the COVID situation. It's inspired from like our families, because during the lockdown, me and our and the other roommates, we have been talking a lot about like families, how we were like missing them, and grandparents. So we were reflecting on the fact that unfortunately sometimes we regret we didn't have the time to talk about the past of our grandparents, or to ask questions, or like to know more about their stories. So for like 2 weeks, we're going to invite our community members to collect stories or from like their grandparents about their past, or just like their experiences, and they gonna like give to us. So we're gonna, I mean, take all of them and sharing with, of course, Moshe's participants, with you, and through our like Facebook and Instagram pages. Really, just, you know, to once again remember why it's important to, you know, share our experiences, story, and still it's a nice way, we believe, to keep in touch with them.
That's beautiful, really. And so I love what y'all are doing. We definitely want to see those. That's really amazing. Thank you, Valentina.
Thank you. We really, yeah.
Now, let's go to Ariel in Los Angeles. Thank you, Valentina. And Ariel, LA has the highest number of coronavirus cases in California. What's the effect been on life in Los Angeles?
Yeah, good question. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. Well, LA is a really big place. It's so spread out, and different communities throughout the city have been hit differently. So where we are in West Hollywood, it's relatively unaffected, or at least it feels that way. Our landlord is actually an emergency room doctor, and he stopped by recently and said that the surge that they were expecting never came. It's actually been relatively quiet there because the people who would normally be out doing reckless activities like, I don't know, extreme sports are not doing that. So there's not people really entering the emergency room for those reasons. So it's just kind of quiet, which is strange. But he says that he thinks that other parts of LA, like the less affluent parts, are being disproportionately affected. Black and brown communities, mostly in East LA. I know that there are organizations like the Jewish Federation of Greater Los Angeles that have been raising support and awareness for the Jewish community and beyond. So that has been interesting to check out on social media and all that kind of stuff. Let's see. Los Angeles is it's known for its traffic here, so it's been interesting to see the reduction in traffic throughout the city. You can walk throughout the city in places where you could not previously, which is kind of awesome. I've been enjoying it a lot. Don't tell anyone. And it's been, and you can see parts of the city miles away that you haven't been able to see in the past because of a reduction in pollution. So I've been enjoying isolation a little bit.
Well, tell us a little bit about, I think we all have a little, we all like it a little bit and don't like other parts about it. So definitely no traffic and no pollution are all benefits, I think, of it. Tell us though, you're a Moishe House veteran, and some of the things that you all have created are really cool. Can you tell us about some of those things?
Sure. Yeah, I'll tell you about a few of them. But I've always been looking to gather people. I love gathering people in person. Before the crisis, in addition to the 7 programs each month that we were doing, I was leading a lot of podcast meetups in Los Angeles. About every 3 months, I would get together people in the podcast community who work for NPR or other types of production companies to talk about podcasting and to talk about the effect that listening will have on the larger media community. Really hoping to grow the footprint of podcasts beyond, right now it's something like 51% of Americans have listened to a podcast. We would like to see that at 100%. So trying to grow that. So these podcast meetups, I would do them every once in a while. I love gathering people in addition to Moishe House. So when this happened, my first thought was, how can I continue to entertain the troops, podcast and otherwise? And I've also always loved trivia. So I used to attend trivia pretty regularly. So I decided I wanted to start a virtual trivia event. So, a screen share, love that. So that's me leading Jeopardy a few nights ago. So initially we were doing just trivia, and trivia separate from Jeopardy. So the way that trivia worked was the app that I work for, which is called Castbox, has a live streaming feature. So anybody can press a button and go live, just audio anytime. And there's special capabilities within that app. So what you can do is people can call in, people can text in, people can become a co-host like that. You can send gifts to each other, and you can play music as well. So I would do trivia that way. And what we did with trivia is we made some of the events. Sunday night is a paid event, $5 to play, and all of it goes to charity. And Thursday is a just for fun event. So that is very fun. And the way that I kind of gamified the situation was that when I first put out a call for trivia on Instagram, just to kind of gauge how interested people might be in playing, an old friend reached out to me from high school and said that her boyfriend works at FanDuel, and we had a phone call about how to make sure the game would make the most sense to the most amount of people. And it was extremely helpful. And I just think it's interesting to see the people that reach out and crawl out of the woodwork during this time. For example, I haven't spoken to that friend since 2010. And then all of a sudden she's like my quarantine best friend. I don't know if this is happening to anybody else. It's just, we have some friends who are really coming out, and they, you know, I might not have gotten back in touch with her. So there are definitely some bright sides to this. So back to trivia. People find out about trivia through Instagram. I have an Instagram there. It's called social_distance_trivia. You can check it out if you want, not required. I post the games there. So because we do a Thursday and a Sunday game, so I post the theme, and then I post hints throughout the week so that if you're following us on Instagram, you get a little bit of a leg up. And I post a countdown on our Instagram story. And I also have people do a poll. So they say yes or no if they can make it, and would they like a reminder. So then I send them a reminder a few hours before the actual game, because people are flaky, and this gives them a reminder to actually show up. It happens. And then I open the room a few minutes beforehand, the live streaming room, and I start playing music, which is always Linus and Lucy from the Vince Garibaldi trio. It's a great song.
Sure.
Who knows if it's legal for me to be doing that? It's probably not, but I do it anyway. No one's checking. And yeah, so then during that time, people recruit for their team, and then we get the game started. 5 rounds, 5 questions each. People type out the answer, and the first person who has the right answer as it appears on my screen gets the point. And along the way, I do some fun facts and try to keep the people entertained. And then the winner gets to donate to a charity of their choice. We have donated to different Los Angeles-based hunger organizations like the LA Food Bank, also to some computer accessibility efforts to make computers more accessible to people who have sight issues. We have raised over $500, and it's been really fun, and I did not expect it to grow out of this crisis, but the first Sunday that we did it, we had 50 people play, and we've had tons of different topics. We've done, first it started pretty general, it was just trivia, and then my biggest critic is my mother, who said that I should make it more specific and have a co-host. So then I added co-hosts, and some of my co-hosts have been Moishe House residents. My friend David, who I used to live with at the Venice House, he was my co-host for a sports trivia round where we focused heavily on WWE because he loves WWE.
Wow. Sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing, and the work in podcasts, and you've even done some virtually hosted some Moishe House Toronto program podcasts, I've heard.
Yes. So the Moishe House in Toronto, I became friendly with Alex Richler, who lives at the house there at NattyCon, actually. And she and I have been in touch over Instagram. It's a great way to keep in touch nowadays. And we even hung out at a retreat in November at Retreatology in Connecticut. So we stayed friends. And she knows that I'm very involved in the podcast community. She asked me to do, she's doing every Thursday, she's doing an event where people gather, and somebody who has a particular skill in a field will come and talk about that field. So I talked about podcasts. We did rapid fire podcast recommendations. Very fun.
Do you have any what would be your recommendations for people listening, if you had 2 recommendations?
Oh, sure. Okay. So the one I always go to is called Criminal. It's by this woman named Phoebe Judge. It's like a smart true crime podcast. It's very classy. Her voice is extremely soothing. I would do that. And just to pair along with that, she has a companion podcast called This Is Love. So it's Criminal and This Is Love. So Criminal is like the shady side of these stories, and then This Is Love is supposed to be the lovely side of it. So for example, last season, actually, she focused on Italy. So that's definitely something to check out, Valentina. She focused on the love of the land of Italy. There's apparently a place in Rome where there's a bunch of cats hanging out, and there's a lady who takes care of the cats. So it's about the lady's love for cats. I don't know, really. It's amazing. So definitely check that out.
Thank you so much. And if you have questions for Ariel, we'll have an opportunity to ask them and submit them. And before our next speaker, just a reminder, Again, that if you have questions, go ahead and submit them on Zoom or on Facebook Live, and we will get to them in the interactive portion. So, okay, let's go to Andrew and Moishe House's Jewish summer camps. Andrew, how are you?
Good, doing well, Jared. Thanks.
Good. So Moishe House's Camp 999 for young adults. You and your wife have been working Camp 99 since 2018. And what have you observed about the camp and the community and the atmosphere that it creates? Can you share it with us?
Yeah, thanks so much, Jared. And I wanted to say that with the Bible players, we've actually gotten to visit Cabinet Retreat a couple times. So I may have seen you and your wife there in the past. So Camp 999 has been going on for a few years and is a really special weekend-long kind of Jewish summer camp for adults. It's really a chance to play. I like to tell people that it's I like to tell people that it's kind of a choose your own adventure where you really can do what sparks joy in you. So a lot of people go on nature walks. A lot of people explore different arts that they normally wouldn't do, music, dancing. It's just a kind of fun, wonderful weekend to escape a bit and not sort of be defined by your job or where you live or your friends that you started the weekend with, but get to play and be who you want to be for the whole weekend. And as part of those camps, I've been the kind of improv specialist, improvisation, and we have an idea in improv of yes and, which is kind of building on each other's ideas. And right now with Expedition 9, we're really living out that idea of yes and, because we've moved online. And what that's allowed over the last couple weeks and the next couple weeks coming up is that we've had reunions with all of our friends from Camp 999 and seeing each other, but also bringing in new people, adding in new folks from around the world in the Moishe House community to learn about the camp and how much fun it is to join all these play shops.
Andrew, that's great. I'm a product of Jewish summer camps, and you know, it's one of the things I love about Moishe House. It makes me go back to those days and the camaraderie that you build by being around other like-minded people. So you mentioned Camp 999 East, our Jewish summer camp for young adults, and it's moved online this year. It'd normally be Memorial Day weekend, but here we are, right? And we've pivoted from this 3-day in-person gathering outside DC for 250 young adults that's been very successful to a global month-long 1,000-participant expedition. And you're leading these play shops, not workshops. They're play shops because there's no work at camp, is what you said. So can you, you know, we all want to play a little bit of these games. You want to lead us in a brief play shop?
Yes, I thought you'd never ask. I would love to.
Okay, let's do that.
Thanks, Jared. Yeah, you know, these play shops have been super fun. And for me, these are really useful activities for all of us. A lot of us are spending a lot more time online and on Zoom than normal. So I'm going to share 2 activities that I think would be great for any meeting you're doing with any work. Would be really fun. So I'm going to teach one game we're going to play one-on-one, and then another one that we'll do with the whole group. And just, I wanted to say about improv that for me, improvisation really connects with our Jewish values. I think about our most famous Jewish prayer, the Shema, which is not a rude way to ask your mom to be quiet. Shema, that's not what it means. Shema means listen or hear. And listening, I think, is really how we develop community and what makes our Jewish community so special. And one of the things I love about improvisation is a great way to practice listening. So we're going to practice some great listening. Our first game, Jared, I would love to play with you. Yeah.
Andrew, I just want to interrupt you 1 second. If people on Zoom, if you want to play on screen as well, go ahead and send us a comment, and we can add a few of you in too. So go ahead and send us a comment through Zoom, and we'll add you in.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Wonderful. Yeah. So our first game, I would love to play one-on-one. We'll do a couple rounds. So Jared, I love you and I played together. This is a game called Ezra, which means help. And in this game, one person is going to take an object that they find somewhere around them in the room, put it behind their back. So I'll do that first. I have my hand behind my back with a mystery object. And Jared, the other person, is going to share a made-up problem that they're having. It could be simple, like, I can't find my hat and I don't want to go outside without a hat. Or my dog is too tired to go for walks. And whatever it is, I'm going to say Ezra is on the way, help is on the way, and I'm going to use my object to solve your problem. Okay, I'm going to pull it out behind my back. So Jared, do you want to make up a problem for me to solve? What's the problem?
Sure, the sprinkler system is broken and the hot weather's killing all the plants. Common problem here, right, this time of year.
Wonderful. Well, Ezra is on the way. I brought here this 3-pound weight. And what you can do with this is you can use this to create a new sprinkler. Basically, you're going to take your sink and bang it till it faces out to your plants, and then you're going to use it to water your plants. So problem solved. There you go.
Perfect.
Wonderful. David, I wonder if you could play around with me. Maybe, David, could you find an object and put something behind your back? Anything on your desk, could be something just nearby.
Got it.
Okay, you got something? Okay, great. So I'll make up a problem for you to solve. So David, it's been raining a lot and my dog doesn't like to go on walks in the rain. So what do I do?
Great news, Andrew. I have a hair tie that's purple for a 3-year-old. And what you can do is you can tie up the dog's hair, and that way the water will only get to one little part of it, and then the dog can just shake it off, and you won't have to worry about it once you get in the house because you can just pop off the purple hair tie.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you. Perfect. Perfect. Thanks, David. So that is a game called Ezra. And I see we have a few people joining us, which is wonderful because our next game can have a lot of participants. I've played this with 100 people at once because you don't have to speak for this one. This one involves getting a little physical. Okay, so this is a game called My Favorite Statue. My Favorite Statue. And the way it works is that one person is going to give a made-up title of an imaginary statue. Okay, so this could be one word like dreams, or it could be a long sentence like that time I fell down on the street, right? And then we are all going to make a statue, a frozen pose, and the person that made the title gets to pick what's their favorite statue, which is their favorite statue. We will celebrate their favorite statue. So I'm so glad we have some friends here and some returning champions from Expedition 9. So I'll give the first title. So inspired by Valentina's amazing work in Rome and all those beautiful things, my first title is I Ate Too Much Pasta. I ate too much pasta. So everyone make a statue of I ate too much pasta. Everybody freeze in that statue. Well, these are great. Love Abby's a little sick. Lander, Sari. Okay, I think Lander Gold is the winner. That's my favorite statue. Lander, stay frozen so we can all see you. Wonderful. There it is. There's my favorite statue. Okay, wonderful. Can we get someone who's on our screen, could you give a new title for a statue? Wave your arms if you have a title idea. We can unmute you. You can give us our next one. Okay, Alyssa has an idea. Can we unmute Alyssa so she can share her?
Yeah, you hurt your hamstring after working out.
Okay, I hurt my hamstring after working out. So everyone make that statue. And Alyssa, you tell us which is your favorite.
I think Abby, the face of anguish and distress.
Very nice job. All right, great job. Round of applause for our volunteers. Amazing job. So that is my favorite statue. Thank you so much for joining us. That's one of the fun games we love. That's just a small taste of my play shops at Expedition 9, but there's all kinds of amazing play shops. You can find them all at camp999.org. 9 is spelled like this, N-A-I, 999. So yeah, that's a little taste. Oh, Jared, you're muted. You're just a statue.
Oh, thank you, Andrew. Thank you. I see why you're so successful and why the Expedition 9 has been so successful. It's a lot more fun than the boring Zooms I'm normally on. So this is exciting. Thank you so much. And we'll go ahead and talk about some of the questions. And thank you for those who have already submitted. And we're going to welcome to submit via chat. And we'll try to get as many as possible here. And let's look for the first question for Ariel. It's from Russell in Atlanta. He'd love to know more about the podcast meetups. How did you identify who to invite? Do you structure the conversations or more freeform?
Great question. Thank you for asking. The podcast meetups that I do are generally advertise to the podcast community that already exists in LA. So I reach out to friends that I've made through networking events or other podcast meetups. The gist of that, and everyone's invited, of course, especially people who want to start podcasts. Great place to meet other already existing podcasters. What I usually do is match people between people who have a skill and people who want to learn that skill. And then I do some sort of skill share, and then we come together and discuss that. And hopefully people who had an idea but didn't know how to fulfill it will get that done. But if you'd like to know more, everybody's free to contact me, and I believe our contact information will be shared. So I'm happy to share more.
Great. Thank you so much. Valentina, you mentioned the Jewish community in Rome is traditional. How did they respond to a Moishe House opening? And can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. That's I mean, a great point, because it was a really effort at the very beginning. The Moishe House Rome, it's the first one in Italy. So people really didn't know about Moishe House, and like most of community members, they've never heard about the initiative. So at the beginning it was kind of challenging. We received a lot of questions, but also we're kind of looking at the project like bit like suspicious, like really they wanted to know more, but they weren't like fully confident on how to implement the project. So when we opened in November, we actually had to work a lot with both like participants, like so people from our age, but as well like for institutions, just to let them aware about what is Moishe House, what we're trying to do, and what would have been an added value of having Moishe House in Rome. And since there, actually we organized a couple of events as well with more like adults public. And since they're more aware about the project, and we're receiving a lot of like positive feedbacks as well. Like the rabbi came to our place for like hosting a lesson, or even like the director of the high school attended like one of the events, and so we're just receiving more like positive feedback, and we're very happy about it.
That sounds great. Valentina, a question from Dan Hammerman. How have you used this quarantine period as a time to recruit new community members looking for interactions with like-minded Jewish young adults? Or have you been able to?
We actually, that's what we were like trying to do the most, because obviously we couldn't like connect physically. So we tried to use a lot of like virtual events through Zoom or like Facebook, and as well like through also the connection with other like Moishe House around the world. So we started even to talk just like randomly and to see what are the other programs from other Moishe houses, and then get them implemented in Rome. So it's so true that we randomly receive like new applicants, especially now, for example, for the quiz that we are running now. We already have like 100 participants that are playing, but just I guess half of them, it's like really members that already participate in a previous event. Others just like received the link through WhatsApp and decided to join us.
That's great, Valentina. Thank you so much. And Moishe House is really all about inspiring Jewish homes and Jewish young adults. And I think we really see that from the stories that you're telling, Valentina and Ariel, to the things that we're seeing that Moishe House is doing with Camp 999. And I'm going to go ahead and send it back to David now to close out our program. And thank you so much to all of our participants.
Thanks, Jared. Huge thank you. Andrew, Ariel, Valentina. Next week, we'll be able to hear from residents in Amsterdam and Jerusalem as they're opening and to get some insight on those communities. The other thing I want to mention is that some of you may have heard that Natan Sharansky has won the Genesis Prize this year that comes with a $1 million prize, which he's generously donating. And Moishe House has been a recipient of one of those grants, including Moishe House Rome, because of the work that they're doing with supporting the community and those in the most need of care during this COVID-19. So there are multiple houses around the world that have received additional grants because of the work that they're doing, including Rome and Paris and London. So a huge thank you to Natan Sharansky and the Genesis Prize for that as well. We look forward to continuing our work in inspiring Jewish homes and being with you again next week on Tuesday. Thanks so much. Have a great week.